This 3D printer is trying to change resin 3D printing, and it's either a stroke of genius or frankly a complete disaster. And after testing it for a few weeks, I'm not sure which it is yet, but there is a lot to love. So I want to preface this whole video by saying that this version of the X1 is a pre-production model, and as a result of that you should consider this video an introduction, not a review. But the Kickstarter for this printer is live right now, and you need to know some information about it, so let's get into it. Let's go over the basics first. This thing is a 10-inch printer. It's got a 16K screen and it costs $459 to buy on the Kickstarter, or $519 if you buy it with the attached resin pump. It's estimated to deliver in July 2025, and all the usual Kickstarter caveats apply here, as well as the caveats that wrap around tariffs, which frankly I have no clue about how any of this is going to affect you, so just something to be aware of at this point. At that size and that price point, that means the X1 is going to be directly competing with already established printers that are on the market right now, like the Saturn IV Ultra 12K and the Anycubic M7. So why should you buy this printer over any of them? Well, let's do a quick unboxing and we'll talk about some of the features. So out of the box, the first thing you'll notice is the size. This is a compact printer, 344 by 331 by 434 millimeters, which is 100 millimeters shorter than the Anycubic M7. Meaning the build volume is 5% smaller as well, at 211.68 by 118.37 by 200 millimeters. It has a white and orange colorway and an up and over lid, which is completely transparent, so you can get a good view of what's happening inside. The screen is up top, which as a taller person I'm a big fan of, as it means I do not have to bend down to look at the stupid thing. And also up top is the USB port, and whatever port that is, because I have no clue. I'm sure someone will tell me in the comments though. Around the back we have a power lead socket and a rocker switch for the on-off, which is a shame because switches, as we all know, should be on the front of printers, not the back. Open up the hood and you'll find that lid can either be up or down, but not both. And when that lid is open, it takes up a lot of vertical space. 800 millimeters to be precise, or roughly double the height of the printer. So there's the screen. It's the same 15,120 by 6,230 14 by 19 nanometer screen you find in most 16K 10-inch printers, and that means it falls just short of true 16K. On top of the screen is a screen protector, and the VAT is refreshingly simple. It's held in place with two mechanical arms. I really love this locking mechanism. It's refreshing to use and feels really secure. Oh, and check out that pour spout. It's looking good. The last feature is the most interesting, the build plate, and I guarantee you have not seen anything like this before. It's a two-part plate that flexes. It's flexed by two plastic rockers. When you twist in opposite directions, the plate either retracts and pushes these plates out, or goes the other way and pulls the plates back. The strangest bit about the plate there for me is it just hangs there. It's not locked in at all. That scares me a little bit. I mean, can it move during the printing, fall off and damage something? I don't know. Is gravity enough to keep it in place? We'll just have to see how it prints. To test this printer, I'm going to be printing gaming models, specifically the new War Cells Kickstarter from Daka, who are sponsoring this video. War Cells is a grab and play skirmish game designed for fast setup and non-stop action. It's fully 3D printable with both factions, the terrain, the tokens, printable in around 350 mil of resin, or about $10 to $15, which brings the full cost of the two faction skirmish game to under $60 if you back in the next few days. After that, it goes up by about $10 to $15. The core set includes everything you need. Two full warbands. There's the 3rd Death Division, fanatics who worship war itself, not for conquest, not for glory, but simply because fighting is fun. To them, the universe is nothing but a grand battlefield, and anyone not holding a weapon is just conveniently stationary target. They believe their souls burn brightest in combat, that their purpose is fulfilled only when their enemies lie in pieces around them, and even if they die in the process, all the better. And the Maverick cultists, once devout followers of Cern, the dark god of sacrifice and blood. They eventually realised that the Divine Master didn't care who did the killing as long as the blood kept flowing. So why not take matters into their own hands? Now they wage war not out of faith but out of sheer pettiness, determined to outdo even their old comrades in violence. To them, Every battle is just another glorious blood donation drive. Except there are no volunteers, and the only payment is screens. There's printable terrain, custom dice, a measuring ruler, and a compendium packed with lore, stats, and quick references. The rules are slimmed down and based on one-page rules, and if you're feeling flush, there's an all-in edition for around about $100, which includes all the optional add-ons. I've linked the campaign below, but what really matters is how they print, so let's get back to that. The printer comes pre-bundled with Halot, which is Creality's slicer, and honestly I struggled a little bit with it, but that's not the purpose of this video. On launch, the printer will be fully compatible with Chitubox, and so that's what I expect most people to use. I was, however, able to drag the models into Halot as they were pre-supported. A quick note about these pre-supports, by the way, because they are excellent. All the models printed absolutely flawlessly, and when it came to it, they just peeled right off, leaving very minimal cleanup. Which is, frankly, exactly what they're supposed to do. But the models also come in parts so you can customise and kit patch to your heart's content. The printing process is the same process you have to go through with every resin printer, and once they're sliced you can either send them to the printer either over your network or via a USB, which you can then plug into the top of the machine and print locally. I did both work. The first files are printed with calibration settings, and that leads us nicely to the first major issue with this printer that I can see. There is no inbuilt RERF function, so no multi-model calibration function built into the printer, which means you need to calibrate each model one by one, like the bad old days of last year. But that's still a pain in the arse, and frankly there should be an RERF function. Luckily I've got a bit of experience with resin printers these days, so I took a good old stab of what I thought would be right, and I think it paid off. If you're interested, I set my base layers at 5 bottom layers and a 30-second exposure, and my layer exposure settings to 2.5 seconds. These are the results of the calibration test, and I think you'll agree they're good enough. When I expand on the printer and do a little more testing, I'll try and dial this in even further, but it takes about 20 minutes per calibration test, and I probably need to do between 8 and 10 to really get it honed down, and I just didn't have time while making this video. With the printer calibrated, I needed a real-world baseline, and that means I'm going to be printing Clinch's Utahraptor. I slapped it into the slicer and hit print. And now is a good time to discuss the most unique bits about the printer, the VAT design. And as you can see, it is very different. Instead of the Z-arm and the plate moving up and down like in every other 3D printer, the whole VAT and the light processing unit, that's the screen, the light source, move up and down instead, which is mad. To do this, it uses dual linear rails and 2 lead screws, which Piocreat say enhance the Piocreat? I'm going to call them Halot from now on. I don't know how to pronounce that. Say enhance the stability and precision of the Z-axis movement, and well, let me show you. It's pretty good, right? And don't forget, this is just the first model. Compare that against the same model from my Hay Gears, and at least to my old eyes, there's very little difference. Halot also say that while it's printing, the excess heat from the screen is expelled into the chamber of the printer, which helps to maintain ambient temperature, but there's no UI features showing the temperature, and so I'm sceptical as to whether this system will perform in winter. As it stands though, the ambient temperature in my garage is around 4 to 5 degrees overnight, and so this did work well for me. The other features they tout in the Kickstarter is an intelligent exposure and a print speed of 170mm per hour. Exposure first. They have a UV light source which only activates when it's needed, to supposedly extend the life of the unit. And again, this sounds cool, but with no way to monitor the health of the light source, surely the middle of the screen, which is the most used bit, will die first, and then render the whole rest of it unusable. Maybe I'm missing something here, and maybe an engineer can come and jump into the comments and tell me why I'm wrong, but I don't know, that doesn't make sense to me. And that print speed of 170mm per hour means the printer has to print one 0.05 micron layer every second, which frankly is impossible. There's no way that can be achieved, particularly when you take into account things like lift and drop speeds. No, it's just not possible. So yes, it's fast, but no, it doesn't seem any faster than any of its competitors in real world situations. I'll have to dig into that some more though. Regardless of the hype though, the 2 major features are the VAT which works very well, and the twist release plate. And while this isn't as perfect as the one the Formlabs Form 4, it does work. And don't forget, the flex plate on the Form 4 costs $250 on its own. So I ran 2 full plates of the War Cells miniatures. One for the 3rd Death Division and one for the Maverick Cultists. When they were finished, I inserted a little plastic drip catcher, which actually fits really nicely, by the way, and easier to use than the silly one that comes with my Saturn 4. Then I remove the plate. It just lifts off because there's no catches to foul up or get covered, and during my use of the machine, which was probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 prints, I didn't have any issues with it. I just twist the plastic handles one way, then the other, and then most of the models drop right off. Another wiggle of those handles and the models are free. If they're small though, like these chaps from the War Cells Kickstarter, you might find the suction of the wet resin holds them in place. They are loose, you just need to poke them and then they'll fall off. I was also concerned that the grooves in the plate would affect things, but they don't seem to. Although for folks who print directly to the plate, this clearly isn't the printer for you, as the design will leave marks. But if you're printing on a raft of supports though, I don't think it makes any difference. In summary, while this feels a little cheap and nowhere near as nice as the Formlabs solution, it does work really well, and frankly I'm thrilled that a company has brought an option like this to the hobbyist end of the market. We need more of this. More manufacturers doing more of this, please. And quickly. Again, I was worried that all the extra surfaces would be hard to clean, but when it came to cleaning it, I just dropped the plate into my wash station and rinse it. Then I replace it and print again. As the plate isn't hollow like the one on the GK series or the Saturn 4, I don't have to worry about it filling with IPA or doing anything funky. I can just drop it in, wash it and go. In the Kickstarter there'll be another add-on unit that preheats the resin and pumps that into the vat, but as of yet I don't have it, so I can't test it. And as I mentioned at the top of the video, this is still a pre-production unit. From what I understand, the vat on the production unit will be black, but everything else aesthetically stays the same. I discovered in my first testing that the first few prints cause resin to drop inside the lid, and some investigation with the engineers later discovered that that was down to static. So going forward, all machines will have an anti-static layer built in on shipment. So hopefully, problem solved. There'll be a few more UI tweaks coming as well. The machine I had, over-the-air updates weren't working, they will be on shipment. And similarly, there's some bugs like around the fan noise and stuff like that, which are still being tweaked as well. But I emailed all my concerns to the engineers and got very quick, very positive responses back, which leaves me with some confidence to think that these things are going to be dealt with. So, no promises from me, but it sounds good so far. So let's check out those models, and while we scroll through them, I'm going to give you my first thoughts about this printer. There'll be a full review coming down the road once I've got a few more hours on this printer. But for now, I like the design, and I like the fact the screen is up top. It's really convenient to use, and I want to see more of that sort of thing happening in the 3D printer market. The moving vat, while cool, doesn't really add anything to my printing process that I can see, but the printer is more compact as a result, so if space is at a premium, then maybe that's a cool feature. But that flex plate works surprisingly well. And for a printer of this price point, having this much innovation within it is a really cool thing. Is it better than the Saturn 4 Ultra 12K? No. Is it better than the Anycubic M7? No, but it holds its own, and the fact that brands like Halot are bringing this many innovative features to consumer printers is only a good thing. It just adds more and more competition to the market. Nice. I hope more and more brands continue to do this. If you are loving the models on screen, do go and check out Dakka Dakka's War Cell Kickstarter. I'll link it down below, along with a link to the X1's Kickstarter too. And all that is left for me to say is a huge thank you to this week's sponsor, Dakka Dakka, and to all my patrons and those who chat with me over on Discord. You know who you are, you're absolute legends. I've been James, this is RisingApe Minis, and I'll see you next time.